This is an example of a male middle-aged voice actor.
Spotify will actually build an audio ad with a voiceover and background track for you. Hello and welcome to Casual Marketing. I'll be your host, Just James, and today I want to talk about Spotify ads. It's a tool that's grown a lot over the last couple of years, and I think it's a good way to have a little bit more uniqueness to your overall marketing plan. Being able to do audio-only ads is not available for most platforms, so adding that into your mix can really just kind of help generate more mind share and provide more opportunity for your brand to get out there. Also very powerful for artists, so if you are an artist or you work for an artist, a lot of great tools there. A lot of what I'm going to go over can be translated to anyone within the music industry. Just instead of worrying about sending someone to a landing page or your website, you can just direct them to a playlist that you've created or your artist channel. So it works for both sets of people, to be honest. But anyway, let's jump in. All right, so this should be the first page that you see when you get started with Spotify ads, and that's ads.spotify.com. They have some nice info here when you first load up the page. Reach your customers where they listen. You can scroll down. They just have some examples that might be worth going through. They talk a little bit about Gen Z, how they're streaming more. And what I like is down here, they have inspiration for your next campaign. So they have some good articles just about how these different brands are using the product. But if we go back over to the top now, if you haven't set any of this up for, you'll probably see this button will say Start Now at the top right. You have to have a Spotify account. So just keep that in mind. If you don't want to use your personal Spotify, you might want to make a new account and then set all this up. But once you get started, just hit this button and we should end up on the actual ads manager platform. So most likely if you're setting up, what it'll ask you to do is to give some information on your business. So you just have to include what industry you're in, the name of your business, and just a couple other small details. And in here I haven't added like address info and all that, so it just wants me to complete that. But we can still kind of mess around and I can show you a little bit of how the platform works. So once you get started, you'll see it's pretty similar to a lot of other ad platforms. It has this campaign, ad sets, and ads breakdown, which is pretty similar to how Facebook works. So if you've messed with that at all, this shouldn't be too much of a change. Just understand that this is a platform that is growing swiftly, so there might be some changes by the time you watch this video, but this base idea should remain the same. So I just want to quickly kind of go through the initial process of what you'll see and some things to expect. So we'll go over here to create a new campaign, and you have to name it. So we'll just do a quick, we'll name it test. And you'll immediately see they're giving you these three choices. What's cool with this section here is you can actually see that there's options for artists as well as brands. So really useful tool if you're managing an artist or you are an artist and you want to get your music out there, or you're promoting a concert. And then the more typical is the e-com, just trying to sell a product. So we'll go over that since that's probably a majority of the people that are going to watch this. So we can select a brand, product, or organization is what we're going to be advertising. And we immediately end up in the ad set. So very similar to Facebook, now we're kind of getting into the demographics. So we'll quickly name this test, like we did the campaign. And you can pick two different distinct formats, which is really neat. So you can either inject your ad in the middle of music when people are streaming, or podcast. Both really fun options to try out. They do have some pros and cons, and some tools are only available in certain circumstances, so just something to keep in mind. For the beginning, let's just start off with music. You get the choice between format, which would be audio, horizontal video, or vertical video. Honestly, if you're just getting started and you don't have like a multi-million-dollar marketing budget, I would just focus on audio when you're launching these. Horizontal and vertical ads are going to be less common. Usually if people are streaming, they're not staring at their phone. So you really get more bang for your buck when you just focus on audio. And I'll show you a couple cool things that Spotify offers that are a little unique. So if we click audio, you can quickly see the different platforms that are available. So if you only want to do mobile, only want to do desktop, or both, you get some options here. Then we get into country, which is awesome. So you can easily break this down. I can do the United States, or I can go deeper and go into location. So like, let's do Texas. you immediately see Texas. What's really fun is you can also break down into different DMAs. So I could do Austin, and you can see Austin, Texas DMA right here. You can also do bulk add postal codes, target the entire country if you're not so worried about a specific location. So you can get really granular, which is great. I actually got the opportunity to use Spotify advertising in the really early days when it was invite only. And a lot of these deeper location breakdowns weren't available at first. So having that available now is awesome. Highly recommend it if you're, especially if you're trying to promote a specific like location or a show. These are great tools. And then if we scroll down, we end up into language, and then you get into specific ages. You could, if you want to make sure it's 21 up, or you want to go to more specific breakdowns, really useful tools, similar to a lot of other platforms in terms of their breakdowns. And then you can get even deeper and go into interests, which you're probably used to if you've done this on other platforms. But there's real-time context, which is target people in specific moments. Which is really fun. So you can look at like what playlists they're listening to. So if they're listening to a cooking playlist or a workout playlist, that's a fun way to just really kind of hone in who you're trying to target. And then you have genres, which is a lot of fun. So then all of the different genres that are available, you can specifically focus on them if that somehow applies to your audience. And you could do no additional targeting if you just want a wide audience. Key thing to note is you'll see here, if I do custom amount for budget, I have to have a minimum of $250 for my campaign. So just keep that in mind. You will have to spend a minimum of $250 if you're going to launch one of these. Then I can go to schedule, immediately control end and start date. And then you get into bidding, and there's not too much to this because you're basically focusing on either impressions, which is just getting some of that frequency, or you're going to do reach, where you're just trying to get as many individual people to hear your ad or see your ad as possible. You do get some nice cool tools for frequency cap, so you can really control, make sure that, if you're getting too specific, that people aren't hearing it so often that they get annoyed. And then you get into your bid cap, which is just the maximum amount you want to bid in the auction for your CPM. So this is really going to depend on what you're targeting. Luckily, they do give you an idea over here in the recommendation column. Based on similar audiences in the last 7 days, we recommend a bid cap of $787 to $962. And so you can go here and you could say in the middle and say $850 if you want to do. And it'll spit this out. Seems like you'll spend most of your budget. So like with most advertising platforms, you'll want to keep your bid cap realistic. You'll want to really try and get an understanding of what your CPM is going to be. Depending on how much you target and how much you specify, that's going to really affect how much you're going to have to pay. So once you have your bid cap set up, then you can move on to the ad side. And this is what's actually really cool about what Spotify's offering. So first I'll do the test for the ad name. So you can upload your own audio if you have your own voiceover or commercial, or you can create new audio, and Spotify will actually build an audio ad with a voiceover and background track for you. This feature is honestly a lot of fun. It's really cool that Spotify has continued to offer this. So you can literally type in your script, whatever you want them to say. You can give specific instructions on how you want the voiceover person to actually say it, how much emotion and tone. You can choose the language, and then you actually choose the voice actor, and they have examples here, which is really fun. Let me see if I can play one.
This is an example of a male middle-aged voice actor. You can submit instructions to direct the tone and cadence of the actor's voice.
Like, I just think that's so much fun. And then here's a female young adult.
This is an example of a female young adult voice actor.
I think that's such a cool feature. I've used it a couple times and they've done an amazing job. They're relatively quick with it. They're very professional. And it just adds some uniqueness and less stress about having to get someone to do a voiceover. So you basically choose all those settings. You can add background music that you want them to add. You can work with them on that. And then you just go here and you add your image, and that's what's going to actually show up in this border here. So what happens is the listener is streaming their music most likely their screen isn't on. That's pretty typical, or they're not even in the Spotify app while the music's playing. So they just hear the audio come on in the middle of the ad. But if they do open the Spotify app, they will actually see this image that you decide. So you can convey some additional information, and you can actually add links, which is nice. So if they're super interested, they can click the link and go check it out. But just keep in mind, it's not as typical for people to click on an ad while they're streaming music. So whatever you have for the voiceover, make sure it's engaging. But that's really all you have to do, and your ad will be ready to go. And they're typically pretty quick on getting everything launched and approved, so you won't have to worry too much. I do want to go back and just show any differences with podcast. So you'll see with podcast, things look a little bit different. You can only select audio as a format, so you don't have as many options for horizontal and vertical. And they will deliver on and off Spotify, which is basically some other partnerships that Spotify has access to that they can get your ad played into. And this competitive separation is another really cool tool that they have, where you can really make sure your ad is getting played in the right spots and also not immediately next to competing brands. That can be a little bit awkward if you're in a vertical that has a lot of similar products. This is just a great way to avoid a lot of that hassle. So highly recommend using that tool for sure. And then you have content controls as well if you want to stay away from certain sensitive topics. There's a lot of podcasts out there, so it is something to keep in mind. There's all sorts of subjects being talked about. One of the podcasts that have become really large are like crime investigation podcasts. So you might just want to be careful with where you're actually putting your ad. But if I go back here, we'll just do beauty and grooming as a quick test. You can exclude sensitive topics and be a little bit more specific on what topics you want to avoid, like crime and violence. And you can also break it down further and target relevant episode content, which is also really fun. So if specifically your ad involves the automotive industry, you can specify that to have a little bit more focus. And then you can break it down further with location, country, and age and gender. And just keep in mind, podcast ads do require a higher minimum. So it's a $500 minimum to get started. And you'll see CPMs are also much higher. This is just what happens, unfortunately, with placements like this. They're a little bit more specific. You can break them down a lot, which you saw here with things like automotive. So you do pay for a higher CPM and there's usually less inventory. But because you can be so specific, it is a very powerful tool. And I do recommend it if you have the budget to give this a shot. And if we click next here and go to the ad portion, we can see audio once again. We'll build an audio ad with voiceover for you, or you can use one that's been previously approved, and you can add an image very similar to just regular audio streaming ads, and you can include a link for customers to click through to your website or landing page. There's not as many advertisers using this platform as some of the big ones like Google Ads and Facebook, but huge upside. It's a big platform with a lot of customers and a lot of opportunity. All right, so now we're in an account that actually has an ad, just because I want to show some of the reporting that they offer and what you'll see once a campaign is done running. So I'll have to blur out some information. I'm sorry I can't show everything, but I just want to give you an idea. So once you have an actual campaign running, you'll see it show up here. Like I said, very similar to other platforms. So you can see that this is active. It's gotten 3,900 impressions, 1,700 reach, 2.2 frequency. It's only gotten 1 click, so very low click-through rate. But like I said, that's not typical for people to click on these ads. But the key thing I want to show is just some of the reporting. So if I click on this campaign here, and now I'm under the ad set, this is where this platform can be a little bit weird. You'll want to hit view report under this ad set to get what I'm about to show. So now that I clicked it, you'll see that there's a lot of information right in front of you. They immediately show you your pacing, which is just showing your budget and kind of where you are along the line of your scheduled time frame. And then you get another couple key breakdowns. So you get your CPM. So right now it's $8.33. I set my bid cap really high just because this is a very specific campaign and that's going after a very specific city and targets. And I just wanted to make sure that we were guaranteeing that our ad would show up. And it was sort of just a test to see what would happen. So we've gotten 4,000 impressions and we've reached 1,700 people. So that's about a 2.25 frequency, which for this is not bad. This is a show that we're promoting, so I'm pretty happy with that. And I've only spent $33 of my actual budget. And then you do get a nice graph here, which just gives you some information on your impressions and your reach over time. So nice to see that. And what I like is when you go further down here, you get these audio results, which is basically how long they listen to the audio. The good thing about these platforms is that they can't skip the ad. So users typically do listen to the entire ad unless they just go and close the entire app as a whole. So really great there. And then you get a further breakdown on what your demographics are. So we have age. I'm only targeting these 2 age brackets. So not too much to show there, but getting into gender, I'm not specifying that, and we are getting more female impressions, which is really interesting. You don't get that with every platform. Some can be really male focused. So another thing to keep in mind too with as you try different ad platforms, some do break through some of these barriers a little bit easier. And then I can see what genres people are listening to when they actually see the ad. So a lot of Latin, but a lot of other that's kind of beyond some of these mainstream categories. So that's fun to see. And then I can also break down platform for iOS, Android, or desktop. And throughout all of these different results, you can also break them down by impression, reach, CPM, clicks, and C2R, which is great to see. But yeah, so that's pretty much it for Spotify ads. It's not a super complex platform. It is growing rapidly, so I'm sure there'll be more tools in the coming months and over the next year, but highly recommend if you have the budget for it. Being able to run audio only ads can be really useful, and it's a little bit of a unique space. Being able to target to specific genres and what people are doing in terms of what playlists they're listening to. It's a good moment to capture people if you have the right ad and the right product. All right, so that was just a deep dive on Spotify ads. I hope it was at least a little bit helpful. Some key things to keep in mind with this tool is that you do have minimum budgets of at least $250 for music streaming audio ads, and then for podcast ads you do have a minimum of $500 for your budget. But beyond that, they do provide voiceover work, and you can specify a certain voice that you want, whether that's male or female, old or young. And you can literally write your entire script, work with them directly. They'll even add background music. So for the fact that there's no additional cost to get those services is really awesome. I highly recommend it. I've been using Spotify advertising for years. I was a part of the initial beta when they were starting the self-serve platform, and it's really grown up a lot, and I can see them adding a lot more tools in the future. So highly recommend. Just understand it shouldn't be your only platform that you're using. It's just a good way to create more mind share and really inject your brand into people's lives. And just make sure that your ad isn't obnoxious. You don't want to piss people off. It's the same as a commercial. People aren't necessarily expecting your ad. So just keep that in mind when you're doing the voiceover, whether you do it or you have Spotify handle it. Make the script pleasant. But thanks for watching, and as always, if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment or just reach out to justjames@casualmarketing.info. I'm always happy to help. Like I've said in other videos, I'm really not here to sell you anything, so I'm happy to talk, happy to provide advice. I'm always willing to hear other people's ideas as well and know what their successes are. So like I said, feel free to reach out and have a great day.